All right, welcome back to another episode of the Post Game Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. My guest today is a former college baseball player and current hitting strategist in the Seattle Mariners organization. He played his college ball at Howard College down in Texas, as well as South Alabama, before launching his coaching career back at Howard. He spent some time at Ascent Athlete up here in Philadelphia before joining the Mariners in 2021. His name is Eddie Paparella, a.k.a. Pap Swings. So, Coach Eddie Paps, appreciate you coming on, man. It was awesome just getting the chance to talk to you and hear more of your story. Unfortunately, I had a technical difficulty at the end of the episode. It was cut short in the middle of what he was saying, which was awesome. So, we will get round two on the books at some point so we can finish his thought. But a little bit of what we talked about was his college baseball journey. It was certainly not linear, had his ups and downs, some injuries. So appreciate him talking about that a little bit. Talks about doing hard things with a group of people, how that's valuable. And then we talk about his coaching and his coaching style, building trust, relationships with players, mental skills, the importance of mental skills at all levels of the game. And then we wrap up a little bit of his journey with faith and how that's impacted him. So really enjoyed hearing about that as well. But Coach Paps, again, Coach Eddie Paps, this was awesome. And I think that some people out there can enjoy this one, hopefully. But with all that said, hope that you enjoy this conversation with Coach Eddie Paparella. All right, we're live. Pap Swings, Coach Pap, Eddie Paps. What's up, man? Thanks for hopping on here, brother.
I'm doing good. Appreciate you having me. Joey, call him Joey Bats in the Delco League.
Joey Bats. Brett used to say Joey Sweet Singles because I'm pretty sure
those work.
Freshman year of college, I think I had a couple hits. They were all singles.
Hey, they get paid for singles. They still do that.
Yeah, on base guy, average.
It's not as sexy, and you're not gonna get $700 million, but they pay those guys.
Right. Yeah. Soto's not really going for singles, but it's all good. So
yeah.
But dude, this will be cool. Yeah, man, I'm excited to just hear a little bit about your story and just learn about like the journey to St. John's and then ultimately to what you're doing now, man. So would love to start there. So the Hun School. Well, first, so how we get connected, Seton Hall connection, Brett Ender, the meat Mafia boys. Shout out again. But I think I probably knew of you when you were going to St. John's because we would have been rivals had you stayed at St. John's. But what's the story there? Like what led you to St. John's and then you were there for a semester, I think. If I'm not mistaken.
I was only there for a semester, but yeah, before that I went to high school with I went to Hun for 4 years, obviously, high school and Princeton for everybody that doesn't know. But the most memorable year was my fourth year when Brett was there as his postgraduate year. And that was where like everything really started from there. He went to Seton Hall. He signed there. I signed at St. John's. And obviously we, both of us didn't end up at Seton Hall or St. John's, but obviously like you and Preddy, the friendships that he talks about, he made along the way. And obviously like I'm glad that I'm able to be associated with that and know you guys. But yeah, both of us, I remember coming back from winter break, first semester with Brett. And it's like, man, like this college thing's tough, which I'm sure is not a super unique experience. I don't even know if it was so much class. I don't even think it was as much baseball. I think it was just a combination of everything. You come from a school with, if you don't have that many kids to go to a big time university, it can get overwhelming. But I would not change anything about the way that it went, to be honest. I think it all worked out perfectly. And yeah, I'm glad for it.
So what? Yeah, I was the same way. I remember. Yeah, freshman year, you get there and it's like you're the best player at your high school, and then you get to Seton Hall, everybody's the best player from their high school. Yeah, and it's definitely a wake up call being away from home, 5:30 a.m. lifts, all that good stuff. You're like, geez, man, this is a lot. But um, so what was the decision ultimately to leave St. John's? I'm curious.
The decision was, I don't know. I think part of me, I felt like I just wasn't. I was looking at the way I was feeling about the semester that I was there and the experience I was having, and I think looking at, man, I got another 7 of these until I'm moving on with my life. You know, another 7 semesters of which it never works out that way. Like if I would have just stayed there, it would have been fine. I'm sure I would have done great. It wouldn't have been, it would have been fine. But um, the JUCO route for me after that, thinking, okay, I can go play in junior college, something I'm super comfortable with, and these guys at Howard really want me to be there. They want me to go, and I could play there for a year and a half, and then reassess and end up at a school that maybe I feel like fits me better. Um, and I ended up at South Alabama from there. My First of all, my JUCO experience was awesome. It was great. Middle of nowhere, completely different from Jamaica, Queens, and I'm sure Seton Hall. It was like imagine if somebody dropped you on Mars with a baseball bat and some cleats. That's what it was like. But it was baseball all the time. Go to class afterwards. Baseball. We lived right behind the right field fence. All the players, the team camaraderie there. It was awesome. It was everything about it was great. Ended up at South Alabama after that. Met some amazing people there that some of them like seriously changed my life. So again, I'm glad at the way it worked out. Um, it wasn't always easy. Had a lot of bumps in the road, but looking back at it now, it was perfect.
Yeah, because JUCO at that time, I remember. Yeah, and Hun was probably similar to Malvern. It's like
Yeah,
you're not going to Malvern to go to a junior college.
yeah,
Like that just wasn't even in the conversation. But
right.
it's good for it's good for you though that you kind of followed your own path, because who knows what would have happened had you stayed at St. John's. I
Right.
don't
I
know.
mean,
It could have worked out. Yeah,
I'm
whatever.
I, here's I'm sure it would have been fine, but
Yeah.
you're absolutely me going to junior college after going to private high school was not a cool thing. It was not a cool thing. Um, I think that the light at the end of the tunnel for that was explaining to my parents the program and the coaches we had there and the pedigree of the players that it came out of there. Of like I'm not saying I'm definitely going to have an opportunity coming out of here to end up somewhere else, but something really tragic would have to happen. Like I would end up at a 4-year school afterwards, but still, it's like, man, what are you doing? Like we sent you to private high school. You're in a 5-year MBA program at St. John's, and you have they're giving you money to go there and play, and you want to go to junior college? Like, what? Like, but it worked out. That's why my parents are amazing. Like I'm blessed to have some parents who have been able, have been super supportive um, of my dreams in baseball as a player and now a coach, and it really has. It's worked out almost perfectly.
Yeah, man. Do you have brothers and sisters? I forget.
Just me.
I thought it was
Just me.
just you. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
only child.
Yep.
Um,
That's it.
so you, so at South Alabama, that's another thing. It's like you probably would have never imagined being down at South Alabama. Because it was kind of an up and down career a little bit, right? Just in
Oh
terms of
yeah.
how things went. I mean, I can certainly relate. Yeah, because you know, you go a week where you're hitting 500 with 3 homers, and then the next week it's like, dude, this isn't even the same. This isn't even the same guy. So, yeah, what was the experience like down
Yeah,
there?
you go from feeling like the pitcher standing on second base to you feel like the pitcher standing 15 inches in front of home plate.
Oh yeah,
That's how it goes. Honestly, like it doesn't matter what level you're at, you'll never escape that. It's just part of the game. But yeah, it was very very up and down. A lot of it was injuries. Um, it was almost every single time that I was on the field for an extended period of time or starting to get back into it, like you'd have an injury, broken handmate, 2 elbow surgeries, Tommy John, broke my elbow. Um, multiple concussions, just a lot. It really was a mess. But I was one of those guys. This was pre-COVID. Like the COVID and COVID, you get what, like you can have 6 years of eligibility without even really taking a red shirt, I think, or having a medical red shirt with the whole COVID ordeal. I had 6 years of eligibility back in 2019, so I was in it for a bit. I think I'm
Back before it was cool.
yeah, back before it's normal. I was a trailblazer of playing in college for way too long. But yeah, it was going from. You're right though, being from Jersey and going to South Alabama. It was always a running joke. You go down there, they call you a Yankee, they make fun of you, they bust on you, but like they really are, like they do love you. You're just different. You're not from there. Um, but seriously, like I met people there that changed my life. It was a great experience off the field. It didn't work out from a baseball standpoint, but I mean, you could be in the Golden Spikes conversation for the first 20 games of the season, and then you punch out the next 25 at bats, and that's it. It's just the way it goes.
Yep.
But honestly, like the way it worked out, I look at the guys that I'm around now. I watch the guys in the big leagues. I watch the stuff that these guys are facing every single day, and for me, it feels like a mercy that I was put into coaching. It wasn't like I decided to go into coaching. Like I was put into coaching earlier, because I probably would be hitting 150 and low at this point, or released, because the stuff's that good that these guys are facing every day. So it did, yeah. I think it worked out the way it's supposed to.
Yeah. Or hitting 350 in the Delco League.
Or that's
Yeah.
where the real fun's at.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's funny, but so yeah. So what was the decision? Like you're a baseball guy, man. You're a baseball guy through and through, and I wonder what the thought process was like for you. Did you ever think about getting another job, or did you ever think about getting out of baseball? Because I'll just like real quick. I remember at Seton Hall, I was I think it was a junior, and that's when I started to not lose the love for the game, but it just wasn't the same. I don't know what didn't feel the same as it once did. And I started thinking about getting internships and all that stuff, which in hindsight is so stupid because, you can work for 40 years. Like there's no need to rush it. But um, I'm wondering for you, did you ever think about getting out of baseball?
I'm going to tell you, first of all, everybody looks at their situation and they never think it's perfect. Like, I'm sure you're feeling like, oh, it's, rushing into an internship. Everybody thinks about that stuff all the time. But like, I think for myself, honestly, I'm not gonna say I never considered anything else. I just was so hooked. I've been so hooked on it, and I've loved it so much that I just couldn't imagine myself doing anything else and really, really enjoying it. You know, um, I've done things on, I've done some entrepreneurial stuff on the side, and um, here and there. But at the end of the day, it always comes back to, like, I love the work that I'm doing and I enjoy it. And I never really thought of anything else. When it was like, hey, what do you want to do? Like, I want to play. Okay, you're not going to play. What do you want to do? I want to coach. Um, we had we have every single year at spring training. We would have our head coach, or our manager. Sorry, our manager would interview somebody every single day in front of the whole clubhouse. And every most of the time he would ask them, if you weren't coaching baseball or you weren't playing in baseball, what would you be doing? And some guys have answers, some of them don't. Some of them are, it was always baseball. I don't really have one. I would be making it up if I told you that I ever really thought about doing anything else. Um, which I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. Maybe someday it won't be that way anymore. But until that changes, I'm in.
I love it. Well, if you have a plan B, it's taken away from plan A. Is what they say.
Yeah.
So what do you love about it then? Like what is it? What aspects of coaching have you loved thus far?
So we're not to kind of go down the rabbit trail right off the rip, but we were having a conversation the other day amongst the staff, and we were talking about this Dan Quinn quote from the with the Commanders, and he mentioned something about doing hard things with a group of people. Like you're always doing, whether it's football, it's baseball, like you set out every day, what you're trying to do, what the hitters are trying to do, what you're trying to help them through is borderline impossible, and it's really hard. So doing hard things with a group of people that you care about and you have built trust with and relationships with, conquering hard things, whether it's hitting or whatever it is what really is enjoyable. Because at the end of the day, there isn't a lot of success. So every time that you have the success, you are almost living through the player. You're experiencing it with them, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Which really makes it cool. Like I'll never be able to hit a home run in a big league game, or I'll never be able to, have a game-winning hit in a double-A game. But when I'm in the dugout and I see one of our players do that, and like the water coolers come out and guys are going nuts, like, and you were in the cage with that player, you were having a conversation with them before, running through a player plan with them, whatever it is, like you're a part of it, and that's what makes it really cool, is watching the players succeed. Because like at the end of the day, it's 100% about the player. Like the players get all the credit on everything all the time, whether it's good, whether it's bad. I mean, honestly, when it's bad, sometimes it lands on the coaches, but when it's good, it's the players always,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the way it should be. So just being blessed to be a part of that and be around them when they do this cool stuff is what makes it really fun.
Yeah, that's the thing about coaching. I feel like if you're in it for the wrong reasons, that will get exposed at some point.
100%, 100%. And
Yeah.
players know, they know, they're so intuitive. And honestly, I think, like you can even remember as a player, I'm sure there's at some point where you had a coach where you were like, this guy is all in, this guy's great. He cares about me. He cares about my success. He's just a good person. He's not in it for the wrong reasons. And you're just gravitated towards those type of guys, versus the other side of the coin is, if you feel like they're in it for the wrong reasons, or they're not in it because they care about making you as a player better, you're, the players aren't going to gravitate towards that. Which is why the relationship part is so important. But you're 100% right. Like players know, they're always watching. They know this stuff.
Without a doubt. If you can think back to so kind of off, not that there's a script, but I know I sent you a couple of things. I'm wondering now though, for you, are there coaches, one or two coaches that come to mind that what you just said you gravitated towards because you're like, dude, this guy, he's just in it for all the right reasons. He knows his stuff. He's a great relationship guy. Like, is there anybody that comes to mind?
Yes. And you bring up junior college, and I think that was one of the things when I went on my visit to junior college that really pulled me in, was listening to what other players had to say about the coaching staff, just spending time with them. And then I was like, okay, these guys truly care. They're out here in the middle of nowhere, and like I said, it's like baseball on Mars, and you could tell they truly love it. They care about it. They have players every single year that they're tasked with of turning from boys in college and building them out into men, and they have great teams every single year. And it was obvious that it was because of the dynamic and the relationships that were in that clubhouse between the staff and the players. And that was just like such an attractive thing for me, to want to go there and be a part of that. But my two junior college coaches, one is Britt Smith, who was our head coach, and Jake Carlson, I believe is the head coach at Howard now, but he was after Howard in 2015 when I was there. He went to Texas A&M. He went to UT San Angelo, I'm pretty sure, Louisiana Monroe, and now he's back coaching at Howard. But that guy was every single day. That office door was open at all times, and if you just wanted to go into the office and lay on the couch and talk about nothing while they're doing work, nobody was kicking you out. If you wanted to go in there and vent, you were having some problem off the field, or issues at home, or issues in the classroom, or whatever it was, anything, there was nothing off limits. They were there. They were there. They would talk you through it. They would walk you through it, and they would never hold it against you. Like, I think that's the big thing. Is I think players sometimes will withhold information from coaches because there's an inherent threat there. You know, what if this person holds this against me? Am I going to play? This person's in charge of the lineup. If they're going to tell somebody else, is it going to come back to haunt me? And again, that's where the trust is a huge piece of that. But yeah, those two guys were unbelievable. Two most impactful people that I've played for and really honestly been around.
It's great. Yeah, man, the trust aspect. For you, is there anything you do deliberately to build that, or just build that relationship outside of just being yourself around dudes? Like, I don't know if there's any art or science to that, but curious how you think about it.
I don't want to say you either have it or you don't, but at the end of the day, like, you have to be yourself around players. And if the person that you are is naturally selfish and in it for the wrong reasons, it's going to be you can't really mask that. It just, it's going to come out. But I think for the most part, man, honestly, for the most part, very large majority, people aren't coaching in baseball for the wrong reasons. I think you could do a million other things for the wrong reasons. I think everybody's in it because they love it. Now, whether they have slip ups from here, from time to time, and do things out of selfish ambition is completely separate. But I think the big picture is everybody that's doing this for the most part really loves it. But relationships you have with players is where that comes from. Relationships are absolutely everything. And it goes into, communication with players. They want to know that you work hard. They want to know that you truly care about them. I was preparing for a talk to our hitting group. I think it was about a few weeks ago, and that was one of the things I talked about was relationships, or rather the talk was about just what great coaches do. It was relationships, communication, having like really high drive, work ethic, and shoot, now that I'm saying it, I can't even remember the last piece. But the relationship part is what really kind of pulls everything together. Think of everything that you have. Relationships with your families, the conversations that you have. You're not going to have conversations with somebody that you don't trust, or you don't have a relationship with. There needs to be some relationship capital or relationship, any sort of, there needs to be something there. And before you break down that wall, there's really not much to be had there. Like, they want to know that they want the relationship. They want to know that you know what you're talking about and you could provide them value. But yeah, the relationship part is huge. Like, you look at Greg Popovich or Phil Jackson, like those examples are that's what they were masters of relationships. And then everything else happened as a byproduct. John Wooden, another example. There was this guy named Neil Payne who did a study. He did a study back in, I think it was 2000. I can't remember, it was 2008 or 2013. I know those are two totally random dates, but it was one of those, I think. And he did. He wanted to know who's the best coach in NBA history. And in order to do this, he created this predictive model that took every single team, the players on the team, and said how many games should they win. What's the expected outcome of the season? How many games they should win? And he found that Greg Popovich was the winningest, won the most games above what was expected of anybody in NBA history. And he's like, all right, I got to go get eyes on this guy. I got to see what it's like in practice, see what it's like. And the thing that he came back with was relationships. Like, the relationships that he had with his players, it was all very personal. It was all very unique. And that was, you could look up, Kawhi Leonard has a story of when his dad passed away, and calls the GM and says, hey, my dad just passed away. I got to head out of town. As soon as he hangs up the phone, within 15 seconds, Pop is knocking on his door at the hotel room, walks into the room and just sits there with the guy for 2 hours as Kawhi Leonard just bawling his eyes out over this loss in his family, like, has nothing to do with basketball, totally separate from basketball. I'm sure there's some guys who are like, man, like, Kawhi Leonard, you're our best player. We got a big game tomorrow. Like, like, we understand you got to go home, but like, come on, like, what are we doing? It had nothing to do with basketball. Um, and like, obviously there's a reason that guy is as good of a coach as he is. Same thing with Phil Jackson. You look at stories of Phil Jackson and Dennis Rodman. He just knew how to relate to guys.
And so, dude, that's so good. And I've heard of that too. What is that? Is that from what book is that from? Or the Neil Payne?
The study,
Yeah, is it a study? I thought it was in a
it's
book, but
from yeah, it's from this book called Culture Code. It might be in
okay,
another
yeah,
book.
exactly, yeah,
Culture Code by Daniel Coyle.
yep,
It's a great book. Great book.
yeah, it is. Um, so are these things that you've like? Where did you start out in the coaching career? So I know that you were at Ascent for like you were at Ascent, right? Down
Yeah,
the road, you were working with
yeah.
youth guys, and then ultimately you got to the point you are with the Mariners. But what is the evolution of your coaching style and career looked like?
Man, yeah, it was it was weird there for a bit because 2019, 2018 was my last year playing. Sorry, what was it? Sorry, spring of 2019 was my last year playing in college. So I went home for the summer. Was like, man, I guess I'm just gonna start doing lessons. At that point I had the Pap Swings page that was, like, I was posting and, kind of semi blew up over the course of like a month and a half, and had a lot of didn't blow up from social media standards now, but at the point in time it was like, it was fairly significant. Had a lot of kids reaching out for remote lessons and stuff, and not just kids, college players, whatever. I was like, all right, this is cool. So I'll do this. I'll do some remote coaching stuff. I'll give some lessons, and went home, did that for the summer. Got a call from Rob Martinez, who I'm almost certain he is coaching at UT RGV right now, Rio Grande Valley in Texas. But he was another one who recruited me to go to Howard, and he said, "Hey man, like, there's an opening at Howard. Would you like to come be, a volunteer assistant, get some experience?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, absolutely." Went there to Howard, had nothing but a dorm room that was paid for, and free meals, and working a 4 a.m. shift at the campus rec for 3 hours, making out whatever minimum wage was at the point. Might have been less, to be honest with you, um, but doing that, um, and I loved it, honestly. Like, I loved it. About 2.5 months into that, I started interviewing for a Mariners job at, it's not a hitting coach, but just like a player development coach, a fourth coach, assistant at one of the affiliates. Got that, came down to Arizona. We had like a Con Ed thing for the Mariners, and then boom, COVID hits. And COVID hits, there was, there was no baseball, nothing going on. There was nothing that I could do. There was no job to go take. The junior college season was totally gone. Um, so then I go up to Philly to be at Ascent because, there's an opportunity up there. And there was a lot of growth in that period where I went from interacting with just a small group of 13 college hitters, and a lot of guys who were a lot of players who were reaching out to me because they wanted swing feedback, like they wanted me to coach up their swing. And now you're at Ascent, and yeah, you're working with some young kids. You have kids coming in that want evaluations, and you got to work through that. But there's also, we had a fair number of big league guys that rolled through, and you're working with them every single day, and they're not coming there for your swing feedback. Like, they're coming there to get their work in, and if they really need something and they trust you enough, they'll ask. You know,
Mhm.
so watching the way that they worked, it was clearly, it was eye-opening experience for me. And all right, this is what pro ball will be like. There's you have to earn the trust of the players. They're not showing up there for you to tell them what to do. Their parents aren't paying you to coach their swing. They just want to know, when I need you, when I need feedback, I need to know that you're there. And unless you got some relationship equity, like, and that the player is going to really knows what you're talking about, there's not much to be had there. So that was very different. Looking at just the dichotomy between pro ball and the private sector stuff.
Yep.
but then, yeah, about halfway, I don't know, maybe 7 months into that was, minor league season was getting ready to start back up again. And Andy McKay called me and said, "You want to be our, our hitting strategist?" So it actually, it worked out. Went from being a player coach in Arizona or Everett, whichever one it was going to be, to having a full time, I guess, I don't know if a leadership type position is the way to call it, but just a promotion, which was really cool that they trusted me with that. So
Yeah,
that's what I've been doing last 4 years. Loved it.
love it, dude. So what does a hitting strategist do with the Mariners?
I regret even bringing up the title because every time somebody asks me, they're like, "What do you do?" You know,
Give me your job description. Yeah.
like what's your job description? The truth is, I don't have a job description. Like if I were to ask for one, it's really like very vague, I believe. Um, it's a baseball operations position, but it looks like a player development position. Um, there's a lot of work with analytics and front office stuff. In terms of front office, I mean like scouting, international pro scouting, amateur scouting, a lot of evaluation for that, helping out our scouting group, working with our baseball projects group and initiatives and developing, scouting reports, coaches interfaces for, databases and software that we can use to evaluate our players. And then other than that, like it's just everything else that would be a normal hitting coach stuff. Like I'm in the cage working hands on with guys and helping to develop player plans and building out goals for our players and everything like that. But the best way I could describe it, which I think everybody that I work with would say this, is it's just um, if I were to say I just do whatever I feel like needs to be done, whatever we need to, whatever position or initiative or door that we need to knock on next is something that I'll just run and go, look into and see if it's worth pursuing. Um, but hitting stuff, pretty much.
The jack of all trades with hitting.
Just hit, just hitting stuff. You do hitting.
Pap Swings, the hitting guy. Dude, it's cool, man. I remember seeing that on social media or whatever a couple years ago when you ultimately got that gig. And what was cool about it is that a lot of the guys that you were working with at Ascent, you're talking about the relationships and everything like that. It looked like um they were all super pumped for you. Like you had a lot of guys that you had built really good relationships with, some Malvern guys that were in there, like a ton of kids in the area, and it
Yeah,
looked like they had a lot of respect for you going on to the next stage, which was cool.
yeah, yeah. I love. I'm telling you, I think every single person, every single guy that I've I met at Ascent, I've still talked to. Not every day, but I still keep in contact with a large majority of them. Especially the pro guys, like the pro guys. It was a smaller group in the morning, and um, like yeah, we actually had one player who was with us in Seattle, who I met at Ascent before he was with us in Seattle, and like just that's he's become one of my best friends through that experience of knowing him before, and he's no longer with us. He's with Kansas City. Um, but yeah, like the relationships. There's something about baseball relationships, man. Like they're just different. I think it's
Yeah,
because of how hard it is, and you're just doing hard stuff with a group of people.
you're in the trenches, dude. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's funny because I was coaching the last couple years, probably the last like 5 years doing travel ball stuff. With kids getting recruited and everything. The scene is crazy. The recruiting scene these days, it's a shit show.
yeah,
but, um, but it was just funny comparing. Well, not comparing, but when I looked at some of the relationships that I had from my professional career, and then just going to coach at the field with some of the guys that I got to know over the last couple of years, even being on that side of it, coaching, and just it's like it was before. You're on the road just shooting shooting the breeze in the hotel rooms, all that stuff. Like you just really get to know guys really well. I don't know. I mean, the baseball relationships are cool because
and
you're doing hard shit, and yeah,
part of
climbing
it
up the
part
ladder.
of it is part of it's when I show up at spring training or I'm there at the field, like part of me still feels like a kid, you know. But then there's also the part of it where you're you have to stand up in front of a room and break down, verbalize an abstract thought to a group of people in a way that is as professional as you can make it without you know, obviously, you know what I mean. Like part of it is
Yeah.
you're a kid, but there's the business side to it, which is real, like that. I think it's just unique. It's obviously
Mhm.
unique.
Yeah.
We've said that.
Yeah. What are so that's actually a good I'm interested in that, like, some of the business side of it, maybe some of the things that you weren't necessarily expecting or anticipating.
Mhm.
Is that can you just give an inside look to some of those? Like, is there anything that yeah, that you weren't really expecting from that aspect of it? Because it's a business.
Um, yeah, I mean, man, I don't know if there's anything that I wasn't really expecting. I do think that you you do feel like going in and when you're playing that if I'm good enough, I will be in the big leagues. Like if I'm good enough to play in the big leagues, I'll be in the big leagues. There's a lot of stuff that needs to go right for someone to make it to the big leagues. I mean, you could be jammed up behind, a perennial all star for 3 seasons before you get traded somewhere else where you could play, or there's an injury, or there's somewhere else where you can fit on the field or play another position. Um, there's a lot of things that need to go right, and I don't think that's a secret. That's not like a trade secret in any way. It's not something that ask any player that's been jammed up in AAA or AA or jammed up in a level who's absolutely playing out of their mind. They know that, like it's just it's right in front of them, which which is tough. It's like if I do all the things right and I play the game the right way and I have all the tools and the ability, there's you mean to tell me that I could run up to minor league free agency and not make it to the big leagues and continue to do this. It's part of it. It's hard. It really is. It's a hard thing. But other than that, the business side of it, I mean, I'm not working with any. I'm not signing any checks. I'm not working on with any dollar values or anything. Um, so I couldn't really tell you much about that. But
Yeah.
um, it's hard. At the end of the day, it's about winning in the big leagues, and wins in the big leagues, they pay. You know, the one thing that did surprise me a lot was learning that a single run in a big league game is worth $200,000. Um, which, when you think of individual player performance of a guy who drives in 120 runs every single year, it's pretty staggering. What that's worth. Um, or even the cool part for our coaches, you see our minor league coaches who are, if they're not in the big leagues, you develop this player, you spend a ton of time with them, they go up to the big leagues, they have a game winning RBI, and it's like, man, you contributed to that. You don't want to look at it as just that's whatever a big league win is worth in dollar values, but they're living through that. You know what I mean? They're seeing it, they're experiencing it. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's cool
200 grand per run.
for a run. Yeah.
How does what how does that break down? You're gonna have to
Um,
explain that to me.
to be honest with you, I don't know exactly how it breaks down. Um, I just know that it has to do with um, again, it's another one of these predictive model type
Yeah.
of things that people that are way smarter than me have figured out. Um, but man, like that's the type of stuff that we weigh in when we're figuring out what equipment we're going to buy. You know, um, we made a purchase on a pitching machine several years ago that we still have to this day, and it was exorbitantly expensive. Um, and but it was an outstanding machine. Like it's great in every single way. And I do think that if used properly, if deployed correctly, like it will result in runs at the big league level. Um, so let's just say, for example, hypothetically, say this machine is worth $400,000, right? You buy this pitching machine for $400,000, and you say we think that this pitching machine is going to spit out 8 to 10 runs on a whole season if used properly. Um, you know, it obviously, like, the value is there. You know, um, regardless, you look at it face value, it sounds pretty wild. Um,
It's a good
but
return. Yeah, if you can spit out 8 to 10 runs, it's a good return on the investment right there.
if you know,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
there.
Huh. Dude, so what about the mental side of the game? What are some of the That's something that I've really been interested in talking to people. Like I've had a couple just performance coaches, mental performance coaches on here. Quite frankly, because I think was something that I lacked along the way. Just
Yeah.
that's just how it was. Like I was saying, there would be flashes, and then there would be like, dude, this is tough. So, what are there patterns, or are there certain things that the guys who mentally tough? I've heard you hear that thrown around a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like, what does that actually mean? But are there commonalities among some of those guys that perform the best in tough spots?
I would say so. Just to talk about the mental side of it a little bit, I would say that for us in Seattle, it's the most significant thing that we do. Like it's the thing that we talk about the most is mental skills. We have um, Andy McKay, who's our assistant general manager, is once our farm director, still works with us a ton in the minor leagues. He was a huge mental skills advocate. Like he has dove down every single rabbit hole, and he's made it back when he was our farm director a massive focus of what we do in the minor leagues. Um, we have a mental performance coordinator, Stephanie Hale, with us in the minor leagues. She's unbelievable. And then we have several mental skills coaches in the minor leagues that move around to our different levels. But honestly, every single thing that you do as a player, you could have every single tool in the bag. You could be the most elite athlete. If you don't have the ability to regulate your emotions on the field, or regulate your stress response to whatever is going on, you're never going to reach your top end night after night, right? Like any given night, like you, Joe Pod, any night you're at Seton Hall, like if you have the best game of your life or you play to your ability, it's here, right? Like this is the best you're going to be tonight, right? You can't play above your skill set. You're just this is the best version of you. If you were locked in mentally every single day and able to like maximize the mental skills that you have, you can perform at this level more often. But what happens is you're performing at a level that you're capable of. Something happens, you freak out, you start focusing on the wrong things at the wrong time, and then it does this. And then once you're down here, you got to figure out how to get out. But that's kind of the way that we would define it, is focusing on the right thing at the right time, right? Because that's what it is, right? If you're in the cage 5 hours before a game and you want to work on some swing stuff and you're in there thinking about your mechanics because you're trying to make a significant adjustment, that's the place for that. If you're in the batter's box and you have a guy in the mound who's throwing 5 pitches and 3 of them are for strikes and he's 95 to 98 and he's riding it and the slider's nasty, it's probably not the place to think about your swing mechanics, right? It's just not going to work.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just that it's the most important thing that you can, and I could talk about this forever because we talk about every single one of our coaches as a mental skills coach first, because everything precedes it, right? If you have mental skills, you could get away with a bad swing if you got elite mental skills. It's a fact, right? Like if you're just good at committing to your plan and clearing your mind and moving freely, you could have a bad swing and hit 300, 300. I mean, you could, it's possible, right? There's guys that have done it, but
Yeah.
it's hugely important.
Right. Because you're just because at that point it's any mechanics or anything like that are out the window, and then it's just like you just said, it's mental at that point. It's just how much resilience am I going to have?
Yeah,
and can I be consistent? Yeah, consistent with it. Like, can it not just show up in flashes? Am I consistently
the truth the truth is that like if you're fully committed and you're just fully focused, flow state, whatever you want to call it, right? Like you're going to take your best swing. Whatever your best swing is, you're going to take it. Right? Like because you're not it's once you invite conscious thought into the box of something that people can't even comprehend how hitting happens. It's your brain shouldn't even be able to compute all these factors and still be able to put the barrel in the right place at the right time. Once you start inviting conscious thought, it doesn't work. Like it's not going to make it better. It's only going to make you worse. So yeah, we talk about it all the time.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. That's the conscious thought. It's not the time when you're in the batter's box to try to, you're problem solving at that point. You can't tweak anything, but Um, well, dude, this is cool, man. I wanted to ask you about. I know I jotted this down, and I was curious because I see your post on Instagram. I see you putting stuff out there, but your faith
Hmm.
at this point, um, well, not at this point, just your faith, kind of the evolution of that too, and where that is in terms of, or just how you're thinking about that. I don't know, because that's something that has I've been thinking about a little bit more too. And it's like the more I try to push and try to figure out whether it's a career or something, whatever it is, a relationship, the more it kind of eludes you. The more you're kind of just like, dude, I have to um, step back and relinquish some of this. So just curious how you are thinking about that.
Yeah. No, this is the good stuff, real good stuff.
Not to get too
Uh,
deep. Yeah, we're not to get too
I
deep
would
here, but yeah.
I would love to get
All
deep
right.
into it. And
Let's hear it.
honestly, I would say that that was one of the people that changed my life when I was at South Alabama was my buddy Drew LeBounty, who's now an assistant coach there, and Matt Bolger, who was one of my teammates there, who's now the head of campus ministry there. Does a ton of work with athletes. When I was there, my sophomore season, I had gone to South Alabama, my redshirt sophomore season, whatever, so many red shirts. Can't remember what year. It was sophomore, redshirt, junior, one of those years.
Your seventh year.
And
Yeah.
yeah, one of them. Uh, and I go in and they give me a lot of money at a junior college to go there and play like a big scholarship, and I was super pumped about it. Blow my elbow out right before going there the following year. Um, obviously had issues just getting back to be healthy, and when I did play, I wasn't performing well, and all that kind of went away. Um, Came back as a walk on the next year. Not as a walk on in the traditional sense, but just didn't have the same scholarship that I had previously, and it was really tough. Like I I wasn't able to play. Um, I wasn't only not doing the thing that I absolutely loved. I wasn't performing the way that I wanted to when I was actually on the field. Um, Everything's kind of falling apart. The clock is ticking. You're 22 years old and you're a junior, and there's all this weird stuff going on. Like if I don't perform well, this is a big year. I'm not going to get a chance to play. Just like putting so much value into the baseball thing, you know, putting so much value into my identity as a baseball player that when it gets taken away, it kind of crushes you a little bit, like it beats you up. Um, so I had Drew Bounty, who was my teammate at the time. I'm going through it. I'm kind of like internalizing it. I'm not really, confessing this stuff to anybody. I'm just kind of wearing it and going about my day. And I was sitting down at a Waffle House with Drew LeBounty, and sitting there absolutely crushing waffles. And one of the things I said to him, he'd been going to campus outreach, which is the program there at South Alabama. And I'd asked him, I was like, his life clearly looked different. Like he was a different person from going there, and it was intriguing to me. Like it was interesting. Like I'm watching this guy that I know, and I'm watching the way he goes about his day, the way he interacts with people. Like he's just a more, without knowing what a super godly person would look like. Like this guy was moving differently, and I was interested in it. And I was like, hey man, like yeah, I grew up in Catholic church, never really read the Bible. I was just kind of there. I was just a spectator, and we were just taught that. I just told him that randomly at this Waffle House, crushing waffles, and he's like, man, I've been praying for you a ton lately, and like my buddy just gave me this Bible study that, if you want to do it, I would love to run through it with you and talk about it and read the Bible. And then, man, that was it. I started doing that with him, and at some point gave my life to Christ, and completely changed, man. Like it was totally different. I was not doing the things that I once was. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I've fallen plenty of times, and I think that I have in some ways, in my just brokenness as a person and a human, I've tried to run in the other direction and go towards the things that are more desirable in a sense to, um, you know, I don't know how you could put it. and God just keeps calling me back. Like he just keeps bringing me back, keeps putting me around people that are like-minded and like big time people in the faith who to build each other up. And like I'm watching what's happening with Brett. Like I watched this whole thing happen with Brett, where he watched me at the beginning of coming back from school as a different person, and like to have him now going down the same path makes things a lot easier. It's easier
Mhm.
to do things with people that, like we were talking about earlier. You do hard things with a group of people. Like it's hard. Life is hard, but when you have other people around you who are like-minded, um, it really makes it easier. But yeah, man, it's
Yeah.
it's been a it's been a journey for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, I appreciate you sharing it, man. Because yeah, it's been something that I've been thinking about and just exploring that. And like, yeah, to your point about Brett, I mean, he's found or he's on the right path, it seems like. And he was talking about that. Yeah, like I was telling you when Prenny and I linked up with him. Yeah, he was talking about it and just how it's changed his life a little bit. So yeah.
Man, this is what I'll tell you though. Is what the big difference was when I think this is a common thing for a lot of people who just have type A personalities. Like you're a hard worker, you get after it, you're doing your thing, you're running this podcast. Like Brett's the same way. Like I'm the same way. You have a type A personality. You want to get stuff done, like goal driven, where you feel like you treat your faith, you treat church the same way. Of like, I have to do things the right way. This is something I'm going to earn, right? Like if I'm a bad person, like I'm gonna, it's gonna come back to get me. If I'm a good person, good things are gonna happen. And like that's not how God operates. Like and that was a very eye opening, life changing revelation for me that um, even in my brokenness and all the bad stuff that I was doing, um, and that most people wouldn't even identify as being bad, right? Just how you treat people, going out, enjoying yourself as a college student, and doing all these things. Like even in that, things that were in opposition to what he says that we should be doing, and how we should be living, he still knew me totally and loved me for it, and sent his son to pay for all the bad things that I've done in my life so that I could be forgiven for it. Like it truly is a free gift. And that's what something that I was not used to is earn everything you get, right? Like I wasn't used to free handouts of, hey, you're good to go forever. Like you're set.